People work at companies because of the relationship with the manager. Now, if the key manager leaves on close, there's some maths that just doesn't work there. So for me, when we are dealing with deals that are coming from brokers and investment banks, what's happened is the economics of that has hyped up the thinking around the value piece that some of the true legacy stuff, I believe, gets lost around your people and your clients. So the deals that we've done, typically they've not been in a process. They're balanced. They're not caught in the hype of the sale of the business, and they're still running their business. They're still focused on the business. And it's our process as well is we don't really talk much numbers in the beginning. We just, is there a fit? Get to know each other. I share as openly, as transparently as I can so that even if we don't do something, they can learn. And they generally do the same in return. So we're all learning. And if there isn't a fit, we don't do a deal. So we do talk to investment banks. We do get deals that we have discussions with. So I'll give you an example. We've got a deal from an investment bank. The company's in California. This guy was an absolute pleasure. I love talking to him. Great business, great fit. And then we got, I think it must have been like 6 or 7 meetings in. And his valuation expectations were twice revenue, which for an MSP is just, it's like a total non-starter. So, and typically when there is some dynamic that happens, when there's this hype of the sale, is something that happens with those valuation expectations. And look, I'm not saying all investment banks are bad. Definitely not. They play an important role. And some investment banks, I think, do a good job of keeping people realistic and informing them as well.
I have an underlying issue with a lot of brokers and investment banks and stuff, and that's there's too many of them, to be honest. There's and not all of them are good. It's kind of like I came from the real estate world, and kind of give you an example. The small market of Tulsa, Oklahoma, can often have 6,000 agents, like licensed agents, people who have licenses, and on average, there's less than 2,000 homes currently listed at any given time, right? So there's 3 agents for every house listed on the market. I think the brokerage world is a little bit like that too, in that it's a lot of states don't even have licensing. Oklahoma, for instance, doesn't have a licensing requirement to be a business broker. A lot of states, I think something like 30 plus states, have no licensing requirement. And then a lot of the other states, like here in California, I don't think there's any special qualifications or tests other than there's real estate tied to them a lot of times. So you have to be a real estate broker in order to have your brokerage license under real estate to sell a business. So I think it's on the business owner like you and myself to really, if there's a broker advisor involved or you're choosing one yourself, what do they really know? What are their credentials? How many deals have they done?
Yeah.
It's just because the barrier to entry into that market is so low. Anybody, I mean, quite honestly, when we first started this, I've only been in this space for about 2.5 years now. I had one of my friends go, "Hey, I'll just go buy a brokerage," and he went and bought a Murphy's brokerage, and he thought he was going to source deals through that. And I was like, now you want to be a broker? I'll hand you a card, and you're a broker. It's like, I just don't think that serves me well. I don't know how that would. I don't think it gives me any more clout or anything other than, hey, I'm an investor, I'm interested. But it's the barrier entry is so low. I think that, and there's good ones out there. I partnered with a really good one. Yeah, and you've probably you've done your vetting, but I just want to preemphasize that with anybody who listens to the show. If you're thinking about going out there, and even inside some of these organizations, like the big ones, Sun and Transworld and stuff, they're not all equal. Even like one broker to the next, they're not all equal. And the problem you're talking about is sky high evaluations, I think, comes from that world of, especially their brokers and investment banks to get paid retainers and upfront fees, and they're trying to win business and grow theirs. And some of these things are even public or have investors, so they're trying to prove that they're worth keeping their job, so their numbers always constantly have to go up. And it's a scenario where somebody comes to me and go, "Hey, the last advisor said I could get 1.2 million, and like we can do 2, without really like taking a look at it and thinking like a deep dive on the thing and saying, well, it's probably really only worth 800K, right?
Yeah.
And that happens more often than not in those advisory roles. I love going. The reason I was asking the whole scenario is I love going on off market. That's what I want to like. I like to identify who it is you want to acquire, who it is that meets the like. What is your culture? What are you looking for? And then making
Mm.
a huge list of everybody out in the space that's like that. And then like who are the most likely that want to partner with us? Who are the most likely
Yeah.
that would be ready for a transition like this? Like, and then go talk to those guys, right? I've yet
Yeah.
to. I think a lot of people underestimate this, but I think more CEOs than you would imagine would entertain a conversation like that if you target your market tight enough where they know there's a benefit to working with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think, an MSP owner slash CEO likes talking to another MSP owner slash CEO. And so that dynamic has seen us being received very well. And yeah, I think there is this fear of some of the brokers, investment banks, private equity firms in the MSP industry, and just go and understand it. There are some great investment banks out there. There's some great PE firms, and we haven't dealt with a lot of brokers, but they are out there, and you just find the fit in any relationship. Look at the key fundamentals that make an alignment for you.
So, what do you think? This is a common question I like to ask. What do you think are some of the myths about your profession and your space that you'd like to debunk? Um, as far as like, 'cause there's people out there thinking right now. There's people listening to the show or hear the show, and they're thinking, "I've been in IT for for 15 years. I'm going to go buy a managed service provider. I'm going to go buy myself an MSP." What are some of the common myths, or what would you say to a guy like that?
Yeah, it very quickly can uh, can consume can consume you. So the idea that it's a low touch and it's almost like closing a new customer is definitely not. Um, yeah, and we've learned the hard way, man. Wow, we've made so many mistakes. I'm glad I'm still here to tell the story. But so the one is the amount of time, and I think just cannot be underestimated. And the other one that I think MSPs probably grasp better than others, but this idea of just going buying someone's business and getting rid of the key people and the key leaders, so you can cut those costs and just suddenly double the profits. I just don't buy that. And you hear of them, I don't buy it. They need to stay around in some capacity, and maybe it can phase into an advisory capacity, but I just that's not that for me is a myth. And I think the examples, and people can come on the show and tell stories about how it worked for them, but I don't buy that.
It's interesting. Managed service providers is just, in the business side of things, if you mirrored what you guys do for the business side of it, they're business advisors, right? You're just advising on technology. So you have the
Yes.
same inherent problems in that. It's like when the lights go off and everybody goes home, 90 something percent of your assets walk out the door every single night and go spend time with their family, right? So to say that you're going to
Yes.
go in and it's just one of the very few. Like if I was buying a financial advisory firm, a management advisory firm, or an MSP, people are the assets. I mean, you buy any company, people are the assets. But in this case,
Mm.
you can't. I get that. I'm 100% aligned with what you're saying. You can't go in and just say I'm going to replace the top management because the top management is why those customers are there, right?
Yeah.
Um, those customers have been, are there because they like who they're working with, they like how they're being treated, and to be honest, it's there's a I would say 50 to 60% of your business isn't your technology as much as it is your ability, the human interaction you have with those clients, customers. You lose them if you can't keep the technology up, but you get to land them and keep them because they like working with you. They like how you interact with them, how you communicate with them, how you treat them in general.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we were talking to an amazing business in Denver. We weren't able to close the deal, but I had such an amazing discussion with him. He's in his late 50s. His two partners were in their early 60s, and they were going to leave, but he was going to stay around for a period of time. And so I think it was going to be 3 years. So in 3 years, you can transition relationships, make sure you blow those customers away, respect the legacy of the exiting shareholders, and also protect the culture. And we didn't do that deal, but I definitely think there is time where these guys can move on, but there needs to be a transition, no question about it.
That's interesting. Is you say that? Was this like in the last year and a half, 2 years?
Yes.
So I was looking at one in Denver, in Colorado. Same scenario. The CEO was willing to stay around for a while. Just a couple of other executives were wanting to leave. They were doing 5.5, 6 million. So they're in your target range, maybe 7 million. It's been a while, and I basically didn't go very far with them because, like, 2/3 of the team wanted to leave in the first two to 3 years. Like 2 of them were leaving soon,
Oh,
and so I just like, okay, no. But I didn't have the infrastructure, right? This would have been I was looking for a cornerstone in the space. I was looking for the anchor, right, to build
yes.
something off of. And as an anchor, I need that leadership, right? Because there's a lot of places, areas I didn't know. So we might have actually, there's a slight chance we talked to the same company. I won't say it because we're both under NDA with that, but there's a slight chance that
Yeah, sure.
and our worlds are kind of intertwined. We know a lot of the same people.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
right. So maybe that, I'm sure one of those people actually, my network actually referred it to me to take a look at it. So good chance that you and I actually took a look at the same thing. I only went to 2 calls with them. Once he told me that, the management situation, I just like, okay. And we were probably right in the middle of COVID or right towards the middle of it. And finding
Yes.
people was like, I just interviewed 200 marketing agencies, and these are guys that know how to market and know how to get their voice out. And
Yes.
and lead generation and finding the right people were their top 2 concerns out of 200 plus marketing agencies, right? Imagine being like, and that you figure that they should be able to, if a marketing agency has a hard time marketing that they need employees, right? So I stepped back, and at the time, I actually had a friend who owned a staffing company. They've since sold it, but a headhunting firm, mostly in the oil and gas space. But they knew how to hire engineers and stuff. And I even chatted with them. I was like, how long would it take you to find me 2 executive level managed service providers, techies, in the Denver market, are willing to relocate to the Denver market? And she was like, this is somebody who's been doing this for years. They were on the lines of 6 months, like 6 months. And I was like, yeah. So,
Wow.
all right.
I mean,
So,
the other. I mean, just thinking about it now that I don't want to miss this
go ahead.
share, because I mean we both know him, but I mean I've read a few things on my understanding of private equity. I think the one that kind of started to open my eyes to it was Orrin Klopper's book, Lessons for CEOs from Private Equity, and then I read a series of others, but it didn't really land. But when I read Adam's book,
Mm.
Private Equity Playbook, and then the exit playbook I read afterwards. Suddenly now, so if you're an MSP, and I think you're either thinking about potentially joining a bigger platform or business, or if you're thinking of embarking on an acquisitive growth strategy, I would read both of those books. And
Yeah,
Adam Kofi he's just, man, that's a gift to our space.
and if you guys Google around and see Adam Coffey actually exited a heat and air company that HVAC. I went 6 or 7, like multiple times, to the tune of a couple billion with a B at the end of it. Don't let
Yeah.
that discourage you, because I've read those books, and he wrote those a while back, right before I had him on the show, or right during, like, I think I read part of one. I got him on the show because it was just timing issue. I couldn't get through it. And then I dove through them on audiobook driving. And they're in such a way that anything in those books applies to any business you have out there. Don't
Agreed.
let your research
Agreed.
and who he is discourage you from listening to him, because and it directly relates to any book on even like a heat and a lot of businesses are managed service providers, whether they want to call themselves or not. A heat and air company is a managed service provider, right? They're maintaining and
Yeah, you're right.
repairing heat and air companies. A plumbing company maintaining or and installing and configuring plumbing solutions. It's just a difference of what the technology is, right? So
Yes.
like
I
now if
couldn't
you're
agree with you more.
yeah. Now, if you're a Shopify store, that may be something different. Like you're selling products and stuff like that. But there's still a lot of that stuff will apply. But yeah, Adam's still one of my favorite. I refer people to him all the time.
Yeah.
In brilliant guy and like really cool under pressure. Yeah, so that's some great books. Um,
Yeah.
so
Great books.
what's the long term vision? What do you guys? I mean, you're going to grow. I mean, you're growing. You're on this growth path now. If you're talking to Adam, you're on the right track, right? You're going through acquisition. You're really
Yes.
careful who you pick out. You're going through this process. To what game? Like to what? What's the vision? Where are you headed?
So I would love to build one of the biggest MSPs in the market and protect our culture as we grow and protect the quality of service. And at a point, we will probably take on a private equity partner, but I want to deeply, deeply understand that before we do that. And so it's almost an MSP, dominant player in our market for MSPs run by MSP entrepreneurs. That's really, really what I would love to achieve.
You know, this may not apply to you guys, but I actually see things merge and things happen. I honestly think that and this is me being maybe immature in the market space, right? I don't know this space very well. I've only been at 2 years, so we can count this up maybe to my ignorance. But I honestly think at some point I've already seen some of the smaller investors create their own funds and raise funds. I actually see a lot of companies, maybe even like yours, where you've got a company, you're in multiple locations, you're growing, to actually create a wing that's a private equity where you own the private equity firm. You're out there doing that. You're raising funds with the private equity. It's doing its thing and it's acquiring
Yes.
things to fit into your model that you're doing. Um, it's just a different set of lawyers and a different set of team members. I mean, like it's
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I've had those discussions with Adam. So that is something we're exploring, but it's a very, very interesting dynamic.
yeah, it's like a what is that? Buy versus build mentality, right? Do I buy this service or
Yes.
do I build it myself? I see that a lot of companies, and maybe I'm just predicting here, pulling a rabbit out my hat, but I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a little bit more of that. Companies that they want to grow, they're going to continue to grow. They know there's money out there that's untapped. There's a lot of dry powder sitting out there. They'll set up their own funds. Like the same way, like a lot of these guys are creating. I just had a guy on here that created a SPAC to raise money to do their next big acquisition. There's money out there that's willing to commit to it, and if you've got a clear vision and stuff, there are investors that will put money towards what you're doing. Now, the drill trick is there's that opens a whole new world. I don't know how many investors you've taken on or what your cap table looks like and stuff, but understanding that can make or break a company too.
Yeah, sure. No, it's critically important, and I think there's a lot of investment interest in the space, there's understanding in the space, and it's just making the right decisions. There's definitely a critical mass that's required to pull that off, but it's strategically, I think you're on the money there as far as what is, and I think going to happen.
One of the biggest ways I think Adam made his money, and the thing that intrigued me about what he did by selling his company over and over and over again, like so for you guys that don't know the story, he started or got brought in as a CEO of a company. They
Yes.
got acquired by a private equity firm, but they only acquired like 80% and they left 20% on the table. And then he grew that, and then they did it again over and over again. So he kept getting like at least. And I didn't get into the numbers. I don't normally pry with people and say, well, how much did you make? But you have to imagine if you got a piece of each one of those, those acquisitions, these mergers and acquisitions transactions, he's set, right? When you
100%.
acquire what's your strategy when you bring on or acquire a company? Are you leaving something on the? Are you allowing them to
Most
participate
definitely.
in the future growth?
Most definitely. That is one of our. So when I spoke earlier around the three pillars and the dynamic of how I don't know how you can protect your people, clients, and good value if you just want to exit and get like 95% cash up front. Uh, our thesis is, imagine now it's a $10 million valuation, just as an example. And the portion that you're getting paid for is 70%. And then you roll that $3 million as an example. Now, our belief is in the medium to longer term, you're going to get more potentially for that amount that you've rolled than you got for actually the entire valuation up front. And you can protect the relationships with your people. You can protect the relationship with your customers. And you're in a bigger team now where you can let go of certain things. You following up on debtors and or receivables and dealing with different HR issues. Those are things you can let go of to focus on the things you're really, really gifted at.
I was talking to a guy who kind of did he bought another, so kind of give you this story. I don't want to give him his name because I didn't get permission to do this. He bought another company because it had a very strong leadership so that he could retire. So he became like the chairman of the board, the advisor. There's a nickname they're giving out there where they call it a aquatire or they're half retire, where you acquire somebody else because they run a similar business as you. And
Yes.
he retires off. And I asked him, well, so what do you do? We were chatting. I was trying to get him on the show, but he's not quite ready because they're still in the integration phase, and he doesn't want to say anything to disrupt the process. But I said, what do you do now that's different? And he says, I do the stuff I love, right? The guy loved going to golf with the clients. He loved they have a big house out by a lake, and, he hosts dinner parties. He likes, that elbow rubbing, social. His whole life's around. His wife is an event planner. I mean, she, that's what they enjoy doing, the showcasing the business and stuff. So their business is growing like mad now because the other guy's running the day-to-day operations, putting systems and processes in. They run it. He acquires something that's run off EOS, so it's very systematic. And he's not. He's creative and he's social, and he just kind of says, "Okay, I don't even know that stuff, but it's working really well. I'm going to stay away from it, and I'm just going to go." He took a bunch of guys out that used to be clients and, out to dinner, one by one, not like in a group, but went out and met with them, seeing what they're going, ended up winning a bunch of them back. He just spent time doing the stuff he used to have time to do that built his company. And that's a hell of an exit, right? He used to pull 60, 80 hours a week, stressed out of his mind to try to keep this thing afloat. Now he says, I go to dinner parties, lunches, and golf. And I go to board meetings and planning sessions, and I still feel like I've got to find something else to do with my time. So,
no, it's a perfect example. Absolutely perfect example.
What piece of advice would you consider most important to business owners out there that are thinking, well, I might want to partner with you or another managed service provider? How can they start preparing themselves to be ready for that conversation with a company like you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Yeah, if you are in a place as an MSP owner where you're so burnt out and you literally see this as a way to just get out and get rid of it, I would pause and take the time to just steady the ship and try and get yourself back to a place of balance. Because I think if you enter into an opportunity in that situation, I don't know if you're going to make the right decision, because we've all, been in business where it's just too much going on. You're too stressed. You're feeling burnt out. So that's the one perspective I would give. And then the next one would be, think about how you manage the finances of the business, because in any process, if there is a fit, there will be a request saying, okay, can we see the numbers so we can understand that? So I think that's something to apply your mind to. We've looked at a couple of opportunities where they didn't use GOG. They literally, they had a friend kind of doing it. So we couldn't actually make sense of the numbers. Great guys, seemed like they had a great business, but we actually couldn't get a basic view of the accounting, so we had to walk away. I would think about depth and succession. Hypothetically, you want to do a 2 to 3 year transition, which is a lot more palatable for an acquirer who in your team could succeed you. That's definitely something to think about. And just housekeeping, get your house in order. Have you got your agreements in place? Are you on top of how are you measuring service levels with your customers? Just have a look at the business. But if you do it if you're feeling just totally burnt out and you just want to get this monkey off your back, that's not the right time. And look, if you are thinking about it and you want to have a discussion, you can reach out to me. And at a point that it makes sense, we could, bring in Adam, who's one of our advisory board members, and you can get a perspective directly from an MSP, and then you can get a perspective from a guy that's in his 20-year career bought 58 businesses. And that would be one way to, we could share our experience.
Awesome. How do people reach out to you? Let's just go ahead and do that. We're at 56 minutes into the show already. So how do people reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
I'm very responsive. So you can text me on my mobile, 917-517-7763. And you can also reach me on LinkedIn under Orrin Klopper, ORRIN, KLOPPER. Or you can email me, ORRIN at Netsurit, NETSURIT.com.
And I have those in the show notes for you guys listening out there. We covered a lot of stuff and stuff. Let's do a couple of wrap-up things. What are the big, if you could pick the 3 takeaways, if somebody didn't remember anything else from the show, only 2 or 3 things, what would you want them to walk away from the show with?
If you're selling your business or considering selling your business, I'm sure you know and understand that there are these 3 dynamics: your people, your clients, and the value that you receive for that. I deeply believe you need to stay around for at least 2 to 3 years in that business. So that's something I really think is important. Secondly, I would go through a process of understanding what a potential deal looks like, understanding the MSP space, what's happening from an M&A perspective, because I think a lot of that information is publicly available. You listen to some of the stuff on your podcast, which is very informative. Your podcast with Tim Mueller, very informative. You even talk to Tim, to build your own knowledge and understanding. And I think it's also how to grow your knowledge on private equity space. Try and grow and understand that. I definitely read both of Adam's books, Private Equity Playbook and Exit Playbook.
And he's mentioned Tim a couple of times. What he's referring to is ITX Marketplace, one of our channel partners. So we are channel partner with ITX in full disclosure. So there'll be links to that in the show notes too. But if you want to read to Tim, and I'm going to Mueller, I believe. Did I get his last name right? Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Funny is I remember people's faces better than I do names. So, but yeah, if you want to reach out to me, I can get you in touch with him too. But first step is let's reach out to Orrin, and especially if you have something in that target. You said between 5 million and 8 million or somewhere in there. I get the numbers
between
right.
3 to 8, 3 to 8 million.
3 to 8 million, and that revenue or EBITDA?
Revenue.
So you're doing 3 million to 8 million in revenue, and you're thinking about wanting to partner with somebody, go, expand your reach, and you've got the, you think you might fit his culture, and you like what he heard today. Reach out to him, and then from there, if that doesn't work, certainly check the show notes. Reach out to the ITX guys. They've been doing this since the 80s, and really know the space, and they primarily work with managed service providers. So, real quick. One big ask: if the audience or myself could do anything for you, who would you want to be introduced to, or what would you want us to help you do?
Yeah, I think you actually covered it. We'd love to talk to MSPs that are considering this journey, and I think we can share a lot of experience. That would be that would be super valuable, and I always learn from those discussions. So there is a selfish piece to it as well.
I get it. That's why I do the podcast. I learn from all you guys. So I want to appreciate
Yeah,
having you on the show today, Orrin, and I thank you for taking the time to be here. The audience is going to love what we did. Hang out for a few minutes after the show, and we'll call it an end.
absolute pleasure, and thanks for your show. I've learned a lot from it. Not only this discussion, but the various podcasts I've listened to.